What if I told you, one of the most iconic looks in college basketball isn't about style at all, but about love, legacy, and a promise that never fades? Every time Dawn Staley steps onto the sidelines, those beaded necklaces aren't just part of her outfit, they're carrying a story that will hit you right in the heart. A story rooted in family, loss, strength, and a connection that refuses to be broken. This isn't something you'll see in the box score. This isn't something commentators always explain. But once you know the real reason behind those beads, you'll never watch her the same way again. So before we dive into this powerful and emotional story, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment below, because stories like this deserve to be seen, heard, and shared. Now let's get into the touching truth behind why Dawn Staley wears those beaded necklaces on the sidelines, and why it means so much more than anyone ever imagined. If you've ever watched Dawn Staley pacing the sidelines, focused, intense, locked into every possession, you've probably noticed something else just as consistent as her coaching presence: the beaded necklaces resting around her neck. They move as she moves. They catch the light during timeouts. They become as recognizable as her voice calling out plays. But what most people don't realize is, those beads carry a story far deeper than basketball. It starts long before championships, before national titles, before packed arenas chanting her name. It starts in Philadelphia, where Dawn Staley grew up in a tight-knit family that didn't have much, but had everything that mattered. At the center of that world was her mother, Estelle Staley. Estelle wasn't just a parent, she was the foundation. Strong, disciplined, deeply loving, and unwavering in her belief in her children. She raised Dawn and her siblings with structure, faith, and resilience. Life wasn't easy, but Estelle made sure her kids never used that as an excuse. She demanded excellence, not perfection, but effort, heart, and accountability. And she had her own quiet style about her. Estelle thoughtful but meaningful jewelry, pieces that weren't about status, but about identity. They were part of her presence. Part of her energy. And for a young Dawn, those details stuck, even if she didn't fully understand why at the time. Fast forward years later, Dawn becomes a basketball star. Dominates at the University of Virginia. Wins Olympic gold medals. Builds a legacy as one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game. Then transitions into coaching, where she would go on to become one of the most powerful figures in women's basketball. But through all of that success, one thing never changed: her connection to her roots, and to her mother. When Estelle Staley passed away, it left a space in Dawn's life that could never truly be filled. And like many people who lose someone central to their world, Dawn found her own way to carry that presence forward. That's where the beads come in. At first, it wasn't a grand statement. It wasn't something planned. It was something personal. Dawn began wearing beaded necklaces as a way to feel close to her mother, to keep a piece of that grounding energy with her, especially in moments where pressure, noise, and expectations could easily overwhelm anyone. On the sidelines, those moments come fast. A missed call. A tight game. A season off. And in those moments, the beads are there. Not as decoration, but as connection. Over time, something unexpected happened. The necklaces started to take on a life of their own. People noticed. Not just fans, but players, friends, and members of her community. And then, they started giving her beads. Handmade necklaces. Cultural pieces. Spiritual tokens. Gifts from players who wanted to say thank you. Gifts from supporters who saw what she represented, not just as a coach, but as a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of strength. Each necklace came with a story. Some were given after big wins. Some during difficult seasons. Some were tied to heritage, African beads symbolizing identity, ancestry, and pride. Some were simply gestures of love. And Dawn? She wore them. Not all at once, but intentionally. Thoughtfully. Each time she chose a necklace, it meant something. It wasn't random. It was a reflection of connection. Suddenly, the beads weren't just about her mother anymore. They became about legacy. About every person who poured into her journey, and every person she poured into in return. Her players began to see it. To them, Coach Staley wasn't just wearing jewelry, she was carrying stories. Carrying reminders. Carrying values. And it translated into how she coached them. She wasn't just preparing them for games, she was preparing them. That's why her players ride so hard for her. That's why her teams play with identity, toughness, and purpose. Because everything about her is intentional, even down to what. In a world of coaching where many stick to the standard, suits, polos, neutral looks, Dawn Staley stands out. And not loudly. Not for attention. But authentically. The beads move as she moves. When she leans forward calling a play, they shift. When she celebrates a big shot, they bounce. When she stands still in a tense moment, they rest, quiet, steady, present. Just like the memory of her mother. And maybe that's the most powerful part of it all. Because while fans see a Hall of Fame coach, while analysts see strategy, leadership, and success, while opponents see intensity and preparation, those beads see something else. They see a daughter who never forgot where she came from. They see a woman who carries love into every arena she steps into. They see someone who understands that legacy isn't just built through wins, but through connection. So the next time you watch Dawn Staley on the sidelines, locked in, focused, leading her team through another battle, take a second look at those beaded necklaces. Because you're not just looking at an accessory. You're looking at a story. A story of family. Of loss. Of remembrance. Of culture. Of community. And most importantly, a story of love that never left her side. And when you really think about it, those beaded necklaces aren't just part of Dawn Staley's sideline look. They're a living reminder that no matter how far you go, you never leave the people who built you behind. Every game, every win, every intense moment on that court, she's carrying love, memory, and legacy right there with her. That's what makes her presence so powerful. It's not just about coaching, it's about connection. And now that you know the story, you'll never see those beads the same way again. If this touched you even a little bit, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. What's something meaningful you carry with you every single day? Don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear it, because stories like this, they deserve to be felt. Until next time, stay inspired.